Hey guys, SD here. Tonight's episode of Walking Dead was a pretty good one. And I apologize for the wacky hat. I'm not having a good hair day, and it's kind of cold in here, so I figured the hat would help. But I got my notes. Blind you with the screen? Yeah, scroll back. No, wait. That was last week's. There we go. Got my notes ready. Let's get started. Okay, so on tonight's episode, I've got the phone propped up, so it looks a little weird from here. I'm trying to get a little closer. On tonight's episode, we start out with probably the shortest opening scene that I've ever seen for The Walking Dead. I might be misremembering, but it's definitely the shortest scene I've seen in a really long time. They put one lonely little melon into a crate in the back of the truck. Strap it in, close the doors. This is the kingdom, obviously getting ready for a savior delivery. And then opening credits. And you're sitting there going, wait, what? Are they screwing with the saviors right now? What's going on? What's going on here? Since this is SpoilerCast, I'm going to go ahead and skip forward a little bit and spoil the fact that this is a bit of a flash forward. We're going to see this scene again later in the episode. A bunch of stuff's going to happen before it. Okay. So, after the opening, we get into Carol wakes up. She's having nightmares, which really... Are you surprised that Carol's having nightmares? Because I'm not surprised Carol's having nightmares. I'd probably be having nightmares just thinking about the things Carol does, much less having to do it myself. I mean, this is Carol, but she's still got a person inside. So she gets up in the morning, and she's thinking, she's got stuff going on in her head, she's putting two and two together, and she goes up to the kingdom. Leaves her little cottage, goes up to the kingdom, tracks down Morgan, where he's busy training little kids to fight now in his hand-to-hand combat. Wait, no. She's heading to the kingdom. She doesn't find him yet. Because we got to witness some badassitude along the way. When she's coming down the main thoroughfare, main street, to get to kingdom, she comes across a walker, and she just kind of maims it. Slashes it down, maims it, which I think is pretty clever on her part, because other people who might be traveling after her, finding dead walkers, relatively fresh dead walkers, is an indicator that somebody was there. Finding a walker crawling around, you don't tend to examine it closely to see if it's got any fresh wounds. And even if it does, well, it just hurt itself and it kept crawling. No big deal. So, she just moves on. She gets to the gate, and when she gets to the gate, there's like a whole group of walkers out there. She just casually picks up a old street sign, climbs up into a tree. By street sign, I mean one that says one way, not, main street sign. Climbs up into a tree and just kind of, like she's pitting olives with this sign. Just one after the other as the zombies walk up to her. Once she's got 4 out of the 5 done, she hops down, takes out the last one, goes up to the gates. The gates open, and Benjamin's standing there just jaw dropped. I mean, this kid, major crush. He's definitely got the hots for Carol now. He's just totally impressed that, over what she has done. And tells her where to find Morgan. So she goes to find Morgan. And, people are starting to understand now why Morgan didn't worry about Carol being out there, why Daryl didn't show too much concern about Carol being out there, or, anyone else. Although no one else really knows that Carol was there, who knows Carol. But no one's really concerned about Carol being out there because she can obviously take care of herself. So Carol goes and finds Morgan, and she's like, okay, I know something happened. I'm not an idiot. There was a reason why Jesus brought everyone up here. There's a reason why Daryl was here and he came to see me. Daryl wouldn't tell me what, Daryl just said everything was fine. I know there's something going on. What's going on? And Morgan's like, no, I ain't getting in the middle of this. Daryl didn't tell you. I ain't telling you. You need to go talk to Daryl about that. And she's like, really, dude? And he's like, yeah, really. But Carol knows. Carol knows something's up. You can tell. So she starts heading back out, trying to figure out what she's probably going to do next. And Benjamin comes up to her again. I mean, total, just big googly eyes, just, oh, please, can I follow you around to see how badass you are? And kind of maybe some of your badassitude will rub off of me so I can be a little more badass. because, you know, this stick thing is really cool and all, but you are badass. And she's like, nah, kid, yeah, just run along and do whatever job you've got to do. Which is gonna kick her in the ass later. Anyway, so she leaves, and she's heading back down the thoroughfare, and she finds a zombie that she had maimed, now dead, with the big slash in his head. So someone has come through this way, and she kind of looks around, trying to see if she can spot anyone, but no one, like, steps out and, you know, exposes themselves as being the ones who have followed her around. So, yeah, that's kind of mysterious and kind of weird, and I'm realizing this hat I now have is, like, giving me so much to play with. Yay! Anyway, so someone finished off the job. Richard, he's bearing a backpack, I want to say. It's very unclear as to what Richard's doing. It turns out it looks like Richard's hanging out outside. He's got a backpack. It has the name Katie on it. You know, you're kind of presuming that this is probably something to do with, you know, his backstory a little bit. You know, every time someone gets some backstory in these things, I'm very, very nervous for them. Because generally, backstory means you about to die. We just found out something sort of tragic about you so that we can identify with you, and now the writers are going to kill you off. So, yeah, bury your book bag or whatever it is you're doing and move on. Cut to a commercial. First word of the night is guns. G-U-N-S. First word of the night. So take that, do what you will. Come back, where the king, Ezekiel, is watching one of his men harvest stuff out of his, apparently it's the king's garden, the special garden, which probably helps him to keep it quiet, the fact that they give stuff to the saviors, you know, they just take it out of the king's garden, no big deal. My niece, my sister put fake fingernails on my niece, and I've just been finding these suckers, like, everywhere tonight. It's insane. I'm gonna put that right there. Right there. Okay. That's like a thumbnail. That's very, very unsettling, especially talking about a zombie film with the fingernail. Anyway, I may have to move it. It may distract me too much. So he's out there. He's watching a guy unload his garden, and this woman comes out, and she's like, dude, I really hate to tell you this, especially since your tiger's right there eyeballing me like I'm going to be the tastiest meal he's ever had. And Zeal's like, no, it's cool. He likes you. He's like, she likes you. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. But she has to tell the king anyway, there are weevils in his crops. I mean, bad. He has to, like, get rid of them all before they spread to the other crops in the rest of the area. So the king's like, oh, crap. And she's like, you know, do whatever you want to do. You can pull them up. You can burn them. You know, get rid of, just as long as you get rid of everything, then we can replant. That's fine. But you just got to get rid of everything. So the king's like, ah. So just before she leaves, the tiger kind of, you know, yowl, growl, not really roars. And she admits, yeah, I peed myself. I'm gonna go. Bye. I love this woman. Can't remember her name, but I love this one. So she heads back out. Cut to Morgan, where he's hanging out in his little room, and Benjamin shows up, and he brought Morgan a special picture, which I could not tell what this picture was, because I just guessed the angle and the glare on the TV, and I don't know. It was not very clear to me. I did watch The Talking Dead after the episodes. Now I know it was a bullfighter, which I think is a really, really ironic choice of subject matter, considering bullfighting is one of the most violent, unnecessary killing sports that there is, and he gives this picture to Morgan, the guy who's promoting this, you know, entire notion of we only kill if we have to. So, I don't know. Anyway, get off my political high horse. So Morgan hangs the picture up, and they're chatting, and Benjamin admits that there's a lady love in his life, and Morgan's like, oh, okay, who's the girl? Or maybe it didn't go exactly that way, but basically Morgan starts needling him, like, oh, who's the girl? Who's the girl? And I'm like, oh god, no. The kid is forming a love life. That's it, he's dead. Screw Richard, kid's dead. And we like the kid more anyway, so, you know, it's always the guy that we like the most, right? Right? So now they're all getting together to take stuff to the saviors. And while Morgan and Richard are standing there watching everyone else load up the truck, Richard starts giving Morgan some more of his backstory. I'm just like, oh my god, Richard, would you stop talking? Richard, just stop talking. You're building your death wish right now. The writers are like giving you all this tragic stuff that's going on in your life. No, stop it. However, Jerry's just as happy as can be, and he's munching on his little bandana full of whatever it is. And then King tries to tell him, "No, you need to leave that here." And he's like, "Really?" And the King's like, "Okay, cool. You can keep it." Man, I hope Jerry never dies. Yeah, spoiler: Jerry does not die in this episode. I hope he never dies. I love Jerry to death, which probably means they're gonna kill him off maybe like in the second last episode of the season. Anyway, so they all climb into the truck, and they're heading to go meet up with the Saviors. And as they go, when they're going to go through the thoroughfare, there's this line of shopping carts, like, built across the way, and they can't get past it. And it forms like an arrow, which in my head is an arrow to death, this way to my trap, you know? So they all get out, and they've all got their guns, and they're all in high alert, and they follow the arrow, and they find an empty grave with a sign in front of it saying, "Bury me here." And they're all like, yeah, okay, somebody's lost their mind. Morgan's like, yeah. Mind loss, definitely a thing that goes on out here. So they go back, and they separate out the carts, and Richard gives Benjamin hell about not having his gun up and whatever, and then move along the way. And they get to the Saviors, and they're late. And the Saviors are not happy that they're late, and of course they're a little mouthy about it, and Ezekiel starts to try to explain why they're late, and the head Savior cuts him off, at which point Jerry's all like, "You do not interrupt the king," to which Gavin, douchebag of the year, you know, the guy who's always needling Richard, smacks him upside the head with Morgan's stick. He's still got Morgan's stick. It looks like it might be the only weapon he's carrying. No, it's not the only weapon he's carrying. We'll get to that shortly. So, knocks Jerry to the ground. Everyone pulls their guns. It's a very, very tense moment. And I want to say Simon is the name of the leader of this group. No, Simon's a different dude. This is a different dude. He goes and checks, and he counts the melons that they brought, and apparently there's only 11. There's supposed to be 12. And the King's like, "No, count them again, because there's totally 12." And he gets over there, no, there's 11. So the King's like, I don't get what happened. I just don't get what happened. So the guy takes their guns. He says, "Okay, everyone needs to have their guns taken. Just take all their guns now." And of course, it's a little bit of a kerfluffle about that. Richard, who doesn't have a gun on him at this point, probably because, you know, he's not allowed to have guns, even though he had one earlier, but, you know, whatever. If they ever run into him carrying a gun, I bet there's gonna be trouble. But he, you know, says, just give them the guns, and of course Gavin makes a smart, just give him the guns, just give him the gun. Man, I want to see someone punch that dude in the face so hard. I hope he gets his by the season finale. But anyway, so the King does eventually tell everyone to give up their guns. They all give up the guns, and it's at this point that the leader of the Saviors is like, yeah, the reason why I had you give up the guns is because it's about to get emotional. It's not going to be good. You guys have proven that you're not good with emotion, so you're short on the on delivery. We got to punish you. We got to punish you. Gavin, it's time. Do it now. And Gavin pulls out his gun, and he's pointing it at, you know, Richard, dead on, between Richard's eyes, and Richard's all teary-eyed, but, you know, being strong, going a strong face. Douchebags that the writers are. So we're looking head on at Gavin, talks the gun to the side and fires, and obviously it's not Richard who just got shot. You know, shot somebody else. Cut to commercial break. And we're all like, oh god, who did he shoot? I mean, I kind of had an idea of who he shot just based off of where everyone was standing. I'm hearing cats. Anyway, based off of where everyone was standing, I had a good idea. But let's see, do we have the? Yeah, we did not have the second word yet. Second word comes later. Come back from commercial break. It's Benjamin. He shot Benjamin in the leg, and now he's starting to bleed out everywhere. I mean, it's a leg shot in the thigh, in, you know, major artery in the thigh. So finally, the Saviors pack up and leave and let them take him. And they have no choice but to take him to Carol because they're not going to make it back to the kingdom in time. So they go to Carol, and they take this kid who's bleeding out, and they put him on her table, and they're trying to save him, they're trying to save him, they're trying to save him. Does not help. He still bleeds out. I mean, it was gone. He was gone. So Morgan kind of loses it a little bit. He was starting to identify with this kid in like a father-son sort. And for those of you who don't remember, Morgan did go off the loony edge a long time ago when his son was killed by his wife, who had turned into a walker, because he couldn't bring himself to kill his, undead wife. And his son was killed by her. And he got a little crazy, and he started his own little barricaded mini city, and he was just picking off anyone who came through until Rick and a couple other people came through and like convinced him to come back to the land of sanity. But yeah, Morgan's starting to lose it again. He goes back to the area where the shopping carts had been, and he's like bashing things around, kicking things around, and like sitting on the edge of the grave and like almost cutting his wrist, but he can't bring himself to do it, and kicking and throwing some stuff around. And he kicks over this shipping crate, bright yellow shipping crate, mailing crate, whatever you want to call it, and under it rolls a cantaloupe. The missing cantaloupe, the one that Benjamin got shot over because they were short. And suddenly he remembers Richard, when he was mouthing off about Benjamin needing to bring his gun up, was walking away from this yellow shipping crate. And he puts two and two together. Because, I mean, yeah, they had everything. The king would not have left without everything. So he makes this connection. And then we go to commercial break. Second word of the night is raised. So both words together, guns raised. Okay? Okay. Come back from commercial break, and it's Morgan confronting Richard. Morgan doesn't even say anything. He walks into Richard's room, carrying the shipping crate, throws it on the floor, closes the door behind him, and just stands there, glowering at Richard, waiting for the explanation. And finally Richard starts talking. He admits that yes, he took it, but he was expecting himself to get shot. I mean, they had already pretty much said that he would be the first to go. Gavin had it out for him. He thought he would be the one to get shot. He thought that his death would be the catalyst that the king would need to show that, they couldn't work with the saviors, and that the king would get together with Rick and everyone else, and they would finally take out the saviors. He was planning on martyring himself. Unfortunately, since that didn't go that way, he was now knowing, he now realized that he's not dead. He's going to have to be the one to lead everybody. God, I'm like, there's an arm of a couch right here, and I'm trying to sit next to it, but I'm like, crunch my foot up, and it's very uncomfortable. Anyway, so now he decides, I need to be the one to lead everyone in this big fight. Yeah, that needs to be me. He tells this long-winded story about how before he came to the kingdom, he was with this group, rather large group of people with tents and babies crying all the time, and trees and all this other stuff. And there was a fight, and then there was a fire that broke out, and there were walkers, and he started running. He saw his wife die before he started running, and while he, 3 days after he was running terrified and everything else, he finally saw his daughter die. So it's like, yeah, okay. And he goes, I did nothing back then. I probably could have prevented what happened had I done something, so now I'm doing something. And now we just have to prove to the saviors that, we see what went wrong. We're very sorry. We know how to move forward in the future. Convince them that we are back on their side, and then go join up with Rick and the others and take them all out. Just destroy them all. Morgan doesn't say a word during all of this. He's just there, glowering. I mean, he is not happy. He is, he's got some problems going on in his head. It's very tough for poor Morgan. So basically, after the me sport, talk, cut to them putting the one single melon in the shipping crate. Remember what we saw in the opening scene, and that's because the Savior said, okay, tomorrow you are bringing us the 1 melon. You're not bringing us any more or any less. Tomorrow you're bringing us the 1 melon. So here the king is bringing him one single melon. Watching the rest of his garden getting burned to the ground, but taking this one single melon. So they get out there, back to the exact same meeting place, because, look, there's the blood puddle, where most of Benjamin died out. And then there's the 2 sticks. Benjamin's stick and then Morgan's stick, because the guy who was kind of pissed that Gavin shot the kid instead of Richard told Gavin to leave Morgan's stick. So that they've got both the sticks. So Morgan picks up both the sticks. And they show back up. And of course, Gavin's being a prick as usual, just making faces and being snide and everything else. And they get their 1 melon. And just before the Saviors had driven up, Morgan asks, because Richard insisted that he was going to tell the king everything that had happened as part of his way of proving that he needed to do his atonement. But Morgan asked Richard shortly before the Saviors show up, did you tell him everything? And Richard's like, I'll tell him later. And the king's like, tell me what? No, you can tell me now. And the Saviors show up. So Morgan just, he cannot contain himself anymore, and he jumps Richard, knocks him over, starts choking him out right there on the ground. No one's doing shit. No, everyone's just kind of standing back like, oh my god, the pacifist just snapped and he's strangling a man to death right here on the asphalt, and everyone's looking. So he kills off Richard. Strangles him right there. Then he stands up. And he says, he tells everything. He tells everything Richard did. He tells about the melon. He tells how Richard had expected it to be him. He says that Richard was doing it in an attempt to make the king upset with the Saviors. But then he turns around and he tells the Savior leader exactly what Richard was saying about how we understand what needs to be done. Like, he's using Richard's words, so you're sitting here going, oh, snap. He's doing what Richard was planning on doing. He's fooling the Saviors into thinking that they are on their side again, and they will do everything that needs to be done. As he, literally says, we understand what we need to do to go forward from here. Getting their trust back. And then as soon as the Saviors leave, he turns around and he tells the king, no, we need to take him out. And the king's like, yeah, we got you. So, they leave. After they try to talk Morgan into coming with them, because they don't want to leave Morgan alone, because he's a little kooky right now. Morgan's like, nah, I got this. So they leave, and he puts a knife into Richard's temple to keep him from coming back, because, he was only strangled. He wasn't, like, shot in the head or anything. And then he drags Richard's body to the empty grave, and he puts him in the empty grave. And as he starts shoveling the dirt onto Richard, he finds the book bag. Has another little moment, and then he goes to find Carol to tell her the truth about everything, about Alexandria, about Glenn, about Abraham, about Olivia and Spencer, and just everything that's been going on. Excuse me. And then he says, I'm going to go now, and I'm going to take out everything that I come across. And she goes, no, how about you stay here? You can go, and you can not go. Just basically telling him, you can stay here. And she goes back to the kingdom. And she goes to Ezekiel. And she's ready to fight. And she goes to Ezekiel, and she tells him, and that's the end of my notes there, and she tells him, we need to fight. And he says, yes, we do. But not right now. And he turns to where he and Benjamin's little brother, the little kid that Morgan was training earlier with the stick, are starting to replant the garden. Which is a very, very symbolic thing. Because it's showing that they're going to have to completely raze everything to the ground and just burn it. But then, new growth can begin. And that was the end of the episode. I really, really did enjoy it. I always enjoy, I guess they call them side characters, like Morgan and that sort of thing. I'm never a huge fan of the Rick characters. I don't know, maybe I've just had enough with Rick and his wishy-washy high and mighty ways. I don't know. But yeah, I enjoyed this episode. Not as much as I enjoyed the Eugene episode a couple weeks ago. But if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, pass it on to your friends, and tune in next week when we have Girl Power as Sasha and Rosita go to try and take out the governor. And we'll see how, or not the governor, I'm sorry, not the new bad guy, Negan, with the baseball bat, Lucille. But, so until next week, this is SD out. Bye!